Welcome to the Show Me How podcast. I'm John.
I'm Stephanie.
And we're here today to talk to you a little bit about real estate. Stephanie and I started working together about a year and a half ago when we had some pretty traumatic experiences in our lives, and we came together with each other to help each other get through that traumatic time.
Right.
So we were looking at, and then Stephanie came up with a great idea to do a podcast to help our friends kind of get through this transitionary time. And so we came up with the name Show Me How. So this is the Show Me How podcast. And because we're both in real estate, Stephanie in residential, me in commercial, we started to focus on real estate and how we can help our friends understand the marketplace, both residential and commercial. I specialize in commercial, and today is our first episode on commercial real estate.
Right. And during those times, we looked at different ways that we could help people in what we call an empty nester space, which what we're both in. Although yours came back and mine came back. The empty nester space, and then what it means to you as a empty nester, and just transitioning into different ways of thinking about real estate, commercial and residential, and help you really understand the opportunities for investing in both segments. And today we're going to talk really about commercial real estate, because I don't think people totally understand what that is.
No, I mean, there's people probably don't even know all the categories. So we'll go into that, and that's kind of where we're starting. So we're going to focus on, in the order of the most relevant properties in the large metropolitan areas, Chicago, New York, LA, etc. And those property types are typically multifamily, office, industrial, warehouse. But then, of course, you have some other and retail.
Retail.
And then you have other specialty types of housing, like student housing, retirement housing, things like that. And then even farmland. So farmland is an important component for much of the country. So this will be important for them as well.
Right, especially since, between Chicago and Milwaukee, really, it's one big development, right? There's not really any vast areas anymore.
Yeah, so today's really a beginner's guide to commercial real estate. What are the categories? And we'll talk a little bit about some of those, and we'll go into some detail. We'll talk about the investment benefits and challenges for each section in a little bit. And then as you give us feedback, we'll look to give you guys more information on the specific topics that you would really like to learn about, such as real estate investment trusts and other topics like that we can help you learn about.
Right. Because, like you said, real estate investment trusts, that is something that you can do with your investment money and different REITs that you can get involved in. And as you see these major redevelopments and developments in these urban areas, how can you get involved in that? And I just heard one about Water Tower Place actually is going to just have three levels of retail, and the rest is going to be office space, medical offices, things like that. So they're taking that back from the retail space. And if you're not familiar with Water Tower Place in Chicago, it was a 9-level indoor shopping mall on the Mag Mile. So just kind of things are changing. It was
all retail. And
all retail. So it's things are shifting. And now John has a new segment in our podcast called John's Stats Corner.
Yes, Stats Corner. So in commercial real estate, it's about the numbers mostly. So there's always emotion and everything, but in this case, we're looking at what sectors are being impacted by the recent circumstances that we found ourselves in over the past 5 years. So I wanted to dig in that a little bit. We'll talk about multifamily, office, industrial, and retail. We'll talk about the vacancy rates and capitalization rates. So to explain to people what capitalization rates are, when you invest in a commercial property, you get a return on your investment, obviously. And investors who want to buy that type of property are looking for a return on investment as well.
Correct.
So if you buy like a Walgreens or something like that, especially in a high value neighborhood, like I think there was one in Miami, a Walgreens right downtown Miami, it was trading for 3% cap rate. Well, what does that mean? That means after all your rents and revenues and expenses, you have a return of 3%. So if you had a $100,000 investment, you would expect $3,000 per year return on your investment.
That doesn't sound really high.
It's not, but the reason it's not high is because it's a guaranteed return on your investment. Because a company like Walgreens has been in business for, I don't know how long, over 100 years, clearly.
Right.
And they're stable. And when they sign a lease, they sign it for 20 to 25 years.
Okay.
So they are secured. So if you buy that Walgreens or invest in that, you're really investing. You can invest a variety of different ways. You can buy the lease, you can own the land, and then lease them the space, which is typically what happens. You now have that guaranteed income for your family and for yourself for the entirety of the lease. It will not ever default. That's the guaranteed. There's a variety of different cap ratings that people look at. Walgreens would be a nationally cap rated organization, so they have a lower cap rate because they're a large corporation and they're guaranteed to pay their rent. Just like companies like Chase, JP Morgan Chase, banks, utilities, even fast food companies like Culver's and things like that, or shopping companies like Kohl's. You'll get great return on great security, but a lower return on your investment because there's very low risk. Then you have the mid-market, which will be something that's sort of like a Culver's, we would call it here in Chicago, or used to be, not Subway, but
Jersey Mike's,
something like that, which was local to Jersey at the time, right? It's a mid-market business. So they're not as secure. You get like a 5 to 8% return on your investment for their rent.
Okay.
So every 100,000, you get 5 to 8. And then there's the locally credited companies, which are basically small, 1 to 3 or 4 different franchises, perhaps.
Okay.
And those might be 8 to 12% return on your investment. So you have a lot of risk. They'll have to move out. Potentially they'll move out from time to time. They'll have to close their doors, things like that. So they're more volatile. And in exchange for that volatility, they have to pay higher rent.
What about like multifamily with, let's say, a storefront in like my dad used to have on Halsted Street?
Well, I'll get into that in one sec. So let's go through it right now, actually. That's what I was going to. So the property types, I have a little data sheet here for their cap rates. So you were asking about the multifamily.
Yeah.
Multifamily currently is about 4 to 7%.
Okay.
So those are, you can get them much higher. It depends on the circumstance. That's a larger structure. If we're looking at something like a 3-flat, you might be able to get it for 8 to 10%.
Okay.
And even higher, because what you'll find in those sectors is there's less sophisticated sellers. And they may not see opportunities that you see on how to improve that property. Mm-hmm. So if you're shrewd, you go around and look for different traits, which I like to look for instance, brick. I like brick structures. They tend to settle and to be done after the first 3 to 5 years. They're stable. You want to look for electricity and plumbing that's been recently updated, or you can go in and update it for not a ton of money and end up upgrading the whole building to a level where you can now increase the rents by 10, 20%.
Right.
So 4 to 7 is kind of an industrial grade type investment.
Got it.
Tool.
What about office space?
Office right now is very high. So, where is it? It's
It said 14 to 18%.
Yeah, I'd say about 16%. Yeah, 14 to 18%, because there's a tremendous amount of problems in that sector because people are working from home. They're not going into the office as much, and in some cases, they're not going in at all anymore. So there's tremendous vacancy. The 14 to 18% goes right along with the vacancy rates. So if you have high vacancy, you're going to have lower cap rate payout.
Like say those companies sign those 20-year leases, even though they don't have anyone in the space, but they still have the lease. Do they have to honor that?
That's exactly what I was talking about before with the Walgreens. So it's all relative. So what's the giant co-working company? Regus. And what's the other one out of New York? You recollect? But anyway, Regus is a big corporation. They'll rent out co-working space. but they are a fixed organization and they're global and they have bonds supporting them, so you know you're going to get your rent. But if you have, corporations that are getting hit very hard in some particular sector and they're starting to close their doors,
Right.
typically they'll pay, but in some cases they can't, and you won't get your funds back. So
Okay.
you have to go to court, you'll have to sue, and that'll cost you a lot of money. So in a lot of cases, people want to just get the keys back, walk away, and take their licking. Maybe get a settlement of some sort.
Okay. I just thought I'd ask that question.
So,
What about industrial?
well, industrial and warehousing actually has picked up. Their vacancy is currently down to 4 to 5%. It's very
Okay.
low. That's typically that wasn't the case. I'd say 8-10 years ago, they'd probably be around switched off with office at
Right.
about 16%. But because of all this shift in work from home, the Amazon big
E-commerce?
kick, Zappos, all the e-commerce, people buying their shoes, everything, literally, through e-commerce, they need warehouses. They have to store their products. As a matter of fact, there's a giant warehouse that's just opening right now at North Avenue and Elston in Chicago, and it's humongous. And it's owned by, I believe it's CBRE, one of the big real estate firms.
Okay.
So they have all the data, and they know there's going to be no vacancies, and it's going to be very expensive. So it's within, I'd say it's about 1 mile of Oak Street Beach.
Okay.
So straight down Division or North Avenue, right to the lake. So that's a prime area for Amazon or a company like that
Right.
to be able to get in there and deliver. The other thing is data centers. So people have a lot of interest in Bitcoin mining and in data center, just provision of data for cloud storage and things like that, and other
Okay.
businesses. Artificial intelligence, as we all know, is booming heavily nowadays.
Right.
So they need energy and they need storage capacity, and it takes a lot of storage capacity. So those things are booming right now. They would be and look like they're going to be for quite a while good investments.
Good. Good to know. What about retail?
Well, retail's got some hits, as we all know. So a lot of small mom and pop businesses were in retail, and when COVID came and everything got shut down, they got devastated. And it really hasn't recovered yet. So the retail rates of vacancy are pretty high right now. I think they're around
And do we think they'll
12%.
continue in that trend?
Well, right now people are getting creative. So creativity will tell the future, essentially. I think we are a very unique culture. We adapt and we overcome. So
Right.
when I say that, what I mean is when I saw this trend starting to happen, I was working on a couple multifamily projects, and I started thinking about it. I'm like, we need to shift the structure of these entities. We need to change them into multifaceted resources so that you're not tied into one particular sector. So that's where the risk comes in. So for specialty real estate, and I'll give you a particular story. There's an organization that owned, in specialty, you can have student housing and you have retirement housing. And I worked with the group, and they had hotels also. And they owned a lot of retirement housing and student housing and hotels. They owned all three of these sectors, and all of them got destroyed in COVID immediately.
Okay. Immediately, yeah.
And their hotels were everything. So their student housing was vacated. Their
Right.
retirement homes, everyone had to leave those or be locked down, and they
Yeah.
mostly closed. And their hotels shut down completely.
Right.
So imagine everything. So when we started looking at these tragedies occur in all these different sectors that thought originally they were getting huge returns on their investment, 15, 20% ROI, return on investment, year after year. And with rents going up, it kept going better and better.
Right.
And then something like this hits, and you see when you're so myopically focused on one sector, it's going to cause a problem.
Exactly.
So the shift in my mind was, well, we need to think about making these into multifaceted solutions. What does that mean? So let's say we have a 20-story building. I wanted to work on one across from the Aragon and put a 20-plus story building there. On the third floor, we would have an entertainment venue right across from the Aragon Theater, which is a concert hall in Chicago. You could have pre-parties there for all the people to show up. There would be parking below. And then there would be residential for the first 10 floors. Then there would be hoteling on like the 11th floor, not hoteling, probably co-working. one floor only, perhaps of a 10,000 square foot, and then the floors above would be a mix of residential and hotels. And these hotels can be scalable. So you might pick in this scenario, 9 of those floors would be initially set out to be hotels.
Right.
But if the market in the entertainment sector became tight, you could shift it down to 5, and you keep 1 floor for services, cooking, staff, etc. The other 5 floors would be for the hotels, and then you turn those 4 floors below that were originally hotel now back into residential.
Right.
So you have flexibility in the model. And then in the lower level in commercial, you can have, something to supply services to the tenants in the building in the neighborhood, coffee, grocery, something like that.
So you want to keep it all in one spot now?
Well, that's a good idea. I don't think every building can do that, but depending on the structure, it could be a good idea because you can't have a coffee shop, sure. You don't need a grocery store in every building, right?
Right.
Co-working, though, very, very interestingly, I thought might work. If you pick, people are living in a certain size structure and you pick like 2% of each building to be co-working so they could get out of their apartment and just go work somewhere else other than their apartment all the time.
Right.
And companies would start paying for it. I think that might be a real shift that occurs.
Yeah, that's a good way of adapting. I know we talked about each sector a little bit, but to dive into, offices a little bit more and talk to us about where you see that going and what's going on right now.
Well, everything we just talked about basically is that. So rework, hybrid working, flexible workspaces, co-working, all these are becoming big, shifts and trends in the marketplace.
And
so
then
it was a great
in Chicago,
scenario.
I see a lot of office buildings. You look at the Langham Hotel in Chicago used to be an office building, and they shifted it to a hotel. And then you look at other buildings downtown Chicago that used to be office buildings, and now they're making them residential.
Yeah, what you're talking about is redevelopment. So redevelopment and repurposing. So while I was talking about a build up from the ground up concept, absolutely in the marketplace now, it's a little harder when you already have a structure in place. You have the plumbing in place. It's a concrete reinforced steel structure.
Right.
You can't just change those. It's not like a residential building.
Okay.
Those things are firm. You could, but it costs so much money. Union wages are very high, especially you're talking about steel workers and concrete workers, electricians, all that. So typically what people do is look to do very simple redevelopments. So can we convert an office into multifamily? Can we get tenants in here? Could we convert an office, part of it, into a co-working facility? Well, that's pretty easy, right?
Right.
So you want to look for easy adaptations to what the previous use was. And nowadays, what you'll see is a lot of these big metropolitan areas, they're having incentives to get people to go in and do exactly that because nobody wants a vacant building.
No.
Right. And it doesn't, it looks like we're going to have people moving back into the office space, but, I haven't worked in an office for most of my career. And I
just don't see that shift going back. If you can we proved after COVID that you could work remote, and then you could do a hybrid situation where you do remote and in the office. I don't think you're going to get people back in the office 5 days a week.
No, and I don't think it needs to be that way either.
No.
I don't think it's even healthy. It's to me, having that flexibility gives you tremendous happiness and joy. You can appreciate your job more. You can be a better parent to your children and your family and your loved ones. So I absolutely believe in a holistic work environment.
Yep,
And I
agree.
think that's going to be a trend that continues.
I agree.
So getting in a little deeper into industrial, again, warehousing, distribution, e-commerce boom has really been the drive there. Redevelopment of some of these spaces, even the office space, could lead to data centers, right? So, you could take a big office building, throw a bunch of servers in it, and now you have a data center. As a matter of fact, we're looking at a couple Bitcoin mining operations out of an office building. So the key to things like that, in that case, is electricity. You need power. It's a lot more difficult than you'd might think, or I used to think, to get power to a particular location.
The amount of power you need.
Yeah, you need like, I guess, 5 gigawatts, which is a big number. Look it up and you'll find out. Up to 100 gigawatts for a big Bitcoin mining operation.
Okay.
So, you got to make sure that the venue you're going to redevelop has these different traits. And, if you're going to turn it into a logistics center, is it key location? Is it easy to get on and off highways, etc.? Same with specialty real estate. So I have a project out in a city called Glenwood. I had a couple projects out there, actually. The city would like to bring in business, right? But they have to do a variety of things to adapt to this environment. They have farmland that they're trying to sell, and I was working with the farmers in the area who own this property. One of them I didn't connect out to, and they sold their land for $10,000 an acre for,
Wow.
Was it 30 acres roughly?
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds great. They probably bought it for 100, but I sold the neighbor's property for $65,000 an acre.
Okay.
Just a year later.
So before we go on to the story, how far out is Glenwood from Chicago?
25 miles from the center.
Okay.
Not as the crow flies.
Okay.
It's a bit closer than that. So it's a great area. It's the first expressway exit, actually, from Chicago. So when you come off of all the expressways and you kind of venture off where all the expressways split on the south side, the first exit is Glenwood. So it's a great location for hotels, hospitality.
Right.
Because people staying in the city, they don't necessarily want to stay downtown and pay $300 to $500 a night.
Right.
So they'll stop at a highway side rest stop or hotel stop on the way, travel lodge, something like that.
I agree.
Yeah. So that's a good location for it. But those places need help in getting them
Exactly.
into the market. So I'm out there doing that work. So that's the hospitality sector. If you get into the hotel business, you can make a tremendous return on your investment if it's positioned properly. And in this case, the land was positioned well for solar because ComEd's network is out there.
Okay.
So we're very close to it. Their rates in ComEd are higher than all the other electrical networks around. So these people were willing to pay such a high rate just to get into the ComEd network. You have to be in the network with the land where you're building the solar field to connect to their network. That's what they require. So by looking for it, positioning it properly, finding out if it had the right zoning, the city support was there, which appears at this time it is. Now they're getting a 650% return versus their neighbor.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But I think that goes back, just like we say in the residential, how crucial it is really to have a good commercial broker working with you because, you selling it for, 55% higher than the other person is key. It's like
550. 50% higher.
Wow.
Yeah. So, of course, you have to have a good broker who knows what they're looking at. So that's a good point, Stephanie.
Right.
Besides, that solar story is great. And I wish I could have helped the other farmer because they were a very nice person, but it didn't work out. And but I'm doing the same thing now with multifamily developments all over the city. So we have something in the South Shore Drive, beautiful 30,000 square feet right on Rainbow Park, just beautiful. And we look at the zoning and see what we could build there. Can we do a multifamily? We have a development project in Bucktown for 14,400 square feet. And the value proposition all hinges on what kind of zoning change they can get.
Right.
So there's a lot of different zonings, nuances. I won't go into all of them, but they have this lower level zoning where you can basically build about 2 times your square footage. So if you have a lot that's 1,000 square feet, you can build 2,000 square feet, which doesn't mean you build 1 foot on every lot, right? You just crunch it down and maybe you go over 400 feet and you go up, right? So that's how multifamily works. You don't build on the whole property, you build up in the air.
Right.
So we're going to work on getting this zoning shifted from a 2 FAR, floor area ratio, to a 3 or above, maybe even 6. And when you do that, the value of that property goes up exponentially.
And in Chicago, I know how it works working with the aldermen. Is that the same, like when you're working around the country? How do you get that zoning changed?
Well, yeah, the city council is primarily where you're going to go, and you have to give something back, right? So in this case, in Chicago, it's common that there's something called ARO, Affordable Housing Ordinance. And so if you ask for a zoning change, they'll actually ask you to give, I think the typical figure is 20% affordable housing, which means that you allow people to live in the apartments that you build for basically low income, and it gets subsidized by the federal grants and even state grants in some cases. So,
and that's good for people to know that are trying to get in the space and want to get into this redevelopment or, zoning change, but realizing that there are things that come along with it.
Yeah, and there's zoning attorneys that go into this. I pride myself on knowing all this, and I glean information from attorneys. I read a lot about it, and I have a friend of mine that's a deputy commissioner of planning and development down at the city of Chicago who helps point me in the right direction when I need some guidance to documentation, to tools, to financial strategies and plans. So it depends.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
And so what's your takeaway from our industrial section?
Well, essentially the e-commerce boom, it continues. It's going to continue to drive demand in the warehousing sector. And investing in industrial is going to be a good way to go. And there's multiple adaptation opportunities for industrial. So it's a good place to go. Your returns will vary. They won't be as high as some other sectors, but they'll be stable. I say that's a good thing to look at if you're interested in that.
Yeah. And
they're getting harder to find, though.
Yeah, I can imagine. Land is getting harder.
Getting very, very hard.
Yeah.
Well, land also. But industrial is getting very, very scarce because it's been bought out by a lot of companies, big companies.
Good to know. What about, as we go through the segments, retail?
So retail, basically there's been a shift, as we said. Again, this is e-commerce. From traditional retail, they've moved into e-commerce. So it's taking a hit. Will it come back? I just don't know. I'd like to say it would, but it's going to be hard to see it do it. So doing a mixed-use redevelopment of that property is starting to become popular. You can do office down in retail spaces. You could even do like artist lofts and things like that. Galleries, art galleries, but there's only so many art galleries you could build.
Right.
So we'll see. I think there's going to be a big continued shift in the usage of real estate into different sectors and different types, and we'll see how that goes.
Okay. Yeah, we'll stay posted on retail. Like I said, about the redevelopment of Water Tower Place in Chicago.
Well, they're focusing on high development, high demand hubs like that. I mean, that's actually an interesting shift. So I was getting contacted by people that wanted to build miniature Kohl's and Nordstrom's type properties. When I say miniature, we're talking 45,000 square feet.
So like the small Targets, like the Targets that you see in Lakeview or...
But higher end retailers.
Wow.
So doing small neighborhood sections. So specifically, I had a property in the South Loop. It was 45,000 square feet, and a group like Nordstrom's was interested in buying it, building a bar in the lower level, and having a coffee shop, and then having a much smaller footprint for the local neighborhood. So it's high density, a lot of high rises right at 16th and Indiana Avenue.
Nice.
So that's an interesting shift that's going on in the marketplace. Not dissimilar to what you said about Water Tower.
Right.
So Water Tower has that medical office district right there from Northwestern Memorial Hospital. So it's easy to say we're going to shift. As a matter of fact, when I was a kid, I remember there being a lot of doctor offices over in Water Tower.
I thought there was, but it's on the back end.
In the residential side, yeah, that's true. But now they're moving it into the main area, and probably because they're having more like,
those med spas, things like that.
Exactly, med spas, and you could do your x-rays and things like that in different locations.
Like those, I don't want to say express medical clinics, but more than just medical clinics. Specialty
with
clinics.
Equipment, special imagers, etc.
All right. My favorite, multifamily.
Yeah, mine too, actually.
My dad's nearest and dearest to his heart.
Yes, actually, that's where I learned all about multifamily. I wish I'd known how much the population was going to grow when we were kids. We didn't think about that at all.
We didn't think about anything when we were kids.
Well, we did a little bit.
A little bit.
We learned about how to work on these buildings, these structures.
Well, and he would lecture, this is your estate. You got to take care of your estate. This is what's going to be your life. Yeah. So
multifamily has just grown and grown and grown, and our population has just grown and grown and grown. And I suppose theoretically it's going to continue to grow and grow and grow. And
I think so too.
That's why Elon has to get over to Mars. We need all that new land so we can continue to expand.
Elon is going to Mars. Okay.
Oh, you didn't know this?
Yeah, well, great.
Yeah, it's been going on for a while.
Let me just start
That's all
his
the
rocket for
stuff
him.
that we're working on.
Okay.
Yeah, rocket boy. So market trends are that, multifamily is going to continue to grow. Rents are going to go up. People are working from home, so theoretically they need a bigger footprint from home. Right? You need an office now. It's not a tremendous amount, but also luxury housing is a big trend too. So when
you talk about multifamily, I'm dumbing it down just for everyone out there. What is considered multifamily?
Well, a building that's primarily rental or condos and for residents.
Okay.
So there could be commercial at a lower level.
Okay.
Technically mixed use, but it's really multifamily with commercial at the lower level.
Okay.
So that's going up. I mean, you wouldn't believe the rents that people are getting paid for some of this luxury multifamily.
I do.
Those are big. When you do an investment in something like that, you're going to primarily, unless you're extraordinarily rich, you're going to be doing it through a real estate investment trust.
Right.
Because you have to buy a fractional share, right?
Right.
But some of these buildings are $180, $200 million to build. But they're getting $4.50 to $4.75 a square foot a month.
That's awesome. I know that
That's not awesome. That's horrible. I mean, it's amazing.
Right.
I wouldn't say awesome, but you have basketball courts in the middle at like the 60th floor. There's a basketball court looking out over the city of Chicago. There's swimming pools. There's just a full gym, all these crazy amenities. There's event spaces. There's meeting rooms, all sorts of different amenities. But you're paying $4,500 for, they're not even 1,000 square feet. They're like 800.
But they're just living there for the amenities.
Well, and the convenience.
Right.
And the awesomeness. I mean, back to that point, these things are amazing. The elevators are super high tech, super fast. They have roof decks at 80, 90 stories up. So it's quite an experience. But
at quite an expense.
Now, just to give you an idea, over in Bucktown, I just did an analysis. The rent rates there on average are about $3.25. So $3,250 versus $4,500
in Fulton Market.
Yeah, no, not Fulton Market. No, South Loop. This is on the South Loop.
Oh, so Fulton Market's even higher.
No, these are the highest in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, South Loop, right on Millennium Park. South Loop, beautiful. Those beautiful high rises, all the way on the south end.
Okay.
Much more expensive than
interesting.
The West Loop you're talking about.
You would think West Loop was the
no,
highest.
And there's no high rises over there anyway. The West Loop is all mid old warehouses converted into residential primarily. Right. There's some new office buildings that have been built, but it's not super fancy. It's adapted redevelopment, which is great, and they're getting decent rents over there. Don't get me wrong, but I'm sure some exceed that. But for the most part, you have an 80-story, 2 or 3 80-story towers getting $450 a square foot a month. That's pretty impressive.
So where do you see multifamily going in the future? What's our takeaway from this?
Basically, luxury rentals are the big focus right now. I mean, all the units I'm working on, the ones in Bucktown, the developers that are going to build there are going to build high-end, expensive luxury rentals. There is a shift towards first-time, I guess, college students transitioning into the workforce with a zoning sector called transit-oriented development.
Okay.
So we call it TOD or ETOD, Extended Transit Oriented Development, which means if you're near a train line, it can be a Metra or a train stop, I should say, near a Metra or a CTA line, Chicago Transit Authority line, within a quarter mile, about 2,560 feet, you would get the ability to have no parking requirement. So you can build a 30-story building with no parking. Parking is very, very expensive. And the units can be smaller. So they call them efficiency units. Why is that? Well, this college student came out of school. They have a job earning $60,000 a year. They want to work and live close to where they work. So they get this expensive but relatively small and therefore affordable high-end luxury unit. Yeah.
So they're mostly studios.
Well, they range, but yes, they're efficiencies, studios, one bedrooms, things like that are the primary areas. Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah, so that's a big focus. I mean, basically, the top end investment is going to be in the big cities with these new multifamilies in the dense areas where they're close to work and they're going to be able to drive the highest values.
All right. Are we going to do our trivia?
Yeah, so we have this section here that'll be fun, hopefully, for everyone. The lightning round. So we're going to ask a question. I'm going to ask a question of Stephanie.
I should ask you the questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So lightning round, myth or fact? Multifamily is always high risk.
No, it's a myth.
Why?
Because people need homes, first of all, and because there is a transition component in multifamily because you have 1-year contracts usually with the tenants and leases, but they're usually operating at about 10% vacancy rate. So you can know that you're going to have 90% of the units full pretty much most of the time. So they're pretty steady in what they do as long as you manage the property well.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. I know you know the answers, but I think you can explain it. So office to multifamily conversions are difficult and costly. Myth or fact?
Well, they're trying to make it easier. So there used to be a big bridge to making this happen, and they didn't want these conversions to go, but now the municipalities have adapted. At least in Chicago, I've seen it. I've heard elsewhere, New York, San Francisco, some of these other big cities realize that they need to get motivated and proactive about getting these buildings repurposed. So they're making it easier. I wouldn't say they're easy. I would say they are easier than they used to be.
Okay. What about like a TIF program?
Well, in relation to what?
And just what are they?
Targeted tax incremental financing is what TIF stands for.
Right.
That means that if a TIF is created in a neighborhood, let's say it's a 8x8 block area, that means that all the taxes, real estate taxes that come in from that area get put into a fund. So they don't go to the government. They just go into this fund. They theoretically are earning interest. And when a project comes into that area, so let's say this project in Bucktown, they really want development. They want to have some commercial there. They'll talk to the alderman. The alderman would say, we really love a grocery store, but we don't have enough commercial in this area. If you would do that, we'd lower your affordable rent ordinance to 10% instead of 20, possibly.
Right.
And in exchange, if you could put a grocery store in the lower level or try your best to do it, because you can't guarantee.
Okay.
Just building the space gives the opportunity. And then the alderman will go work on your behalf also to help try and bring Aldi or some of the big jewels or, Amazon or Fresh Market into those locations so that they can fill a need for the community.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So then all those taxes can be applied to that project. Not all of them. You get a portion of them. And basically what it comes down to is your taxes for the materials, your costs for the architect, your cost perhaps for a project manager can be written off against this TIF. So whatever those costs are to you, the TIF would pay those back to you.
So
tax-free.
It's a great
it's a great
program.
incentive. Yeah. And they're much better incentives too. I'm just touching on them at a high level. So TIFs are great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how should we kind of I wanted you to talk to our points of different opportunities, but just kind of your takeaways on each one of them. Like where would you see the key points for those.
Well, all right. So if we look at farmland, industrial, we'll take these big sectors: farmland, industrial, multifamily, office, and mixed use. I think mixed use is kind of my favorite sector now. We want to be repurposing this property with multiple purposes, not just one or the other, so they don't get trapped into one specific sector, which could then be vulnerable if something were to occur, whatever it was, right? Office is going to get converted into different segments. I think it's going to continue to adapt over to multifamily or other usages. And that trend, I don't think, is going away in the near future. Multifamily is always going to be there. Our population continues to grow from what I've seen. I don't think we've had a downslide in America anyway.
Right.
And so that's going to be a good bet for you in the future. Industrial is also going to remain a good bet. Might even still be the sector that's growing the most, with the shift recently by the new administration to focus on artificial intelligence and getting $500 billion in investment in the United States to build out the AI model. That's going to take a lot of energy and a lot of data storage.
Okay.
So, you got to look at trends like that when the new incoming government comes in. What are they going to invest in? Because they can have a big influence and a big sway. So the solar farm deal is going through with earnest because the farm the artificial intelligence sector needs that electricity, and therefore the farmland shot up in price and value.
Right.
So you got to look at those trends and see what they are, and then try and get ahead of them or into them when you can. So the industrial and farmland in this case kind of work together, right?
Right.
But if there's shifts, one thing I'm trying to get into now is kind of city planning. I'm trying to work with Glenwood and these other suburbs, Stager, Illinois, to help them plan to bring in businesses to their areas that they haven't previously done.
Right.
Well, anyway. And so how do we do that? Well, we get the city council to do a feasibility study. We'll get them to look at their tax structure. Do they have hospitality taxes? Because they don't even have tax structures in some of these cases. And if you don't have any of these things in place, you will not get like a Marriott hotel or Hilton to even look at the neighborhood. And they may say it's the greatest location in the world, but we require all these other things to be in place.
Exactly.
And we need a holistic environment. So we need retail nearby, right? We have to have restaurants where people are going to be able to eat. We're going to need gas stations. So that's kind of exciting for me. That's where I'm going to focus, and that's going to have a lot to do with farmland and industrial in the near future. But I'm going to put in, or work on putting in workforce housing, which is multifamily.
Right.
It's just a specialty sector of multifamily. And it's benefited by federal grants that'll help fund these projects. So it lowers the investment. You end up getting money back. There's other things that do this, like tax credits.
Right.
And different programs like this that are important to look into and find out if you're going to get into a project like this, where are the most beneficial areas to focus. So it really depends on what you're interested in and what the municipalities are willing to support or the federal government is supporting currently.
Right. Well, just to kind of do our closing and looking at we looked at all the different sectors within commercial, and I know we did it at a high level today because there's a lot to digest, right? It's different than residential, but it plays into residential, like you're saying, in these smaller communities. They have to have the infrastructure to have the retail and have all the things that we need so that the residential can thrive too. So they kind of go hand in hand in that kind of thing that you're looking at. And then, the new section that John's going to talk about in his John comparison.
Stats corner, or was it?
Corner?
No, I have a tool. That's what she's talking about.
Yeah.
So I created a tool for you because we've talked about a lot, and we only have an hour and 45 minutes to an hour coming up. So basically, I put together a worksheet for you guys to look at. It talks about all the different segments. Then it goes into ROI and annual return on investment, digs into the typical cap rate for that market segment, zoning and regulatory concerns for that particular type of segment, financing options that are that are in play, development versus rehab opportunities, and ultimately for who. is this type of investment somebody that really wants to dig in, or is it somebody hands off? Like a good example, the solar project, hands off. They're selling it though. So it's pretty much just a transaction. But if you do a leasehold with like a Walgreens,
Right.
people are like, oh, I don't want to be a landlord. Well, you're not a landlord, essentially. It's called a triple net lease, and we'll get into that in a future date. A triple net lease means basically they pay you for the land, and then they pay for everything else.
Right.
They pay for the building to be built. They pay for all the connections to the sewers. They pay for all the electrical. They pay for every single thing. You do not have to lift a finger. But of course, in return for that, you get a much lower return on your investment.
Correct.
Whereas if you go into multifamily, like I am involved in, Stephanie, Dean, her brother is involved in, a lot of our friends are, I have to be a landlord. I have to deal with tenants. I have an Airbnb. Sometimes that gets a little hairy, not often, but it has. And your tenants, I had a pipe blow up this winter, when it got the coldest day of the year. Pipe exploded, shot all over the place. So we've all had those moments, and you have to be there, So luckily I work from home, so whatever I'm doing, I just dropped it and focused on this. I had that flexibility, but it's more work,
right?
And some people don't want that.
Right. It is definitely being a landlord is a lot. It's work. It's not just you run in and collect the rent check every month. You have to maintain the building and maintain the surroundings for sure.
And unless you go to a next level. Now you want to do multifamily, and let's do an 8-unit or 12 or 20-unit complex. Well, in this case, they probably have an on-staff manager,
right,
who takes care of these things and works with the vendors. So you really, again, don't have to do much except keep that building manager hired, right? So if you lose that building manager, now you have an issue.
Right.
Now you could go to a management company, but it's a higher cost.
Higher cost of what you're doing. And then, you got to kind of look at your cost differences of all that.
And so the important thing is looking at this tool. Hopefully it'll help you identify that. If you want to investigate these things, reach out. We're happy to help you talk it over and find you resources or opportunities that you can invest in.
Right. And, one thing about commercial, too, I know that in my segment, I'll do this quick, but I get asked questions about commercial all the time. And do you know a commercial broker? Because don't have a residential real estate agent broker do your commercial, because we don't specialize in that. And there's a really important reason that they're separated. So with that, please subscribe, share our podcast with your friends. We'll have a lightning round next time where we'll do more trivia, and I won't let John have the answers. So I'll try to stump the host, right? Yeah. And you'll win a mug or something.
Yeah, thank you all. I hope you got something out of it. We look forward to getting your feedback. And please, as always, reach out and let us know what you're interested in, and we'll see what we can do. And if you have any interests or needs, want to learn more about any particular sector, just reach out and contact us.
We'll load all the stats and charts onto the website.
Yeah, you'll have the tools available.
We'll see you next week.
Thank you.